Yeah. So I think maybe we'll start with the bigger picture. We're talking about the global perspective. I think there's going to be much more collaboration happening in the future. And that's just the reality simply because of the breaking down of barriers. I don't think, with the flow of information being so predominant across the different countries, you've got governments fighting against that sort of information flow. You've got your WikiLeaks issues and the latest one with NASA trying to control information. Not NASA, sorry, NSA getting information and then getting found out about it. The information flow is going to promote even further collaboration that's already been happening in the country. People are already sourcing for talents across the world. You're sourcing for talents with a global awareness as opposed to local market awareness. Nobody talks about hiring people to work on the local market anymore. So I think collaboration complemented by a competitive edge. So that's differentiated by talent. I think that's going to be the reality for leadership in the future. How do you leverage on this collaboration and competitiveness to gain momentum? On the ASEAN level, I think there is a slow movement towards a more progressive acceptance of this flow of information, this open flow of information. So we're sort of playing catch up with the European and American regions in terms of collaboration, but you're seeing it more and more happening as well. And I think the big issue as far as leadership is concerned is becoming a little bit more adept and agile at dealing with differences, because I think differences is not a big culture for ASEAN countries so far. And I think this what I'm going to say applies across the board for both global as well as ASEAN leadership skill sets. I think in terms of competency development, you have got to become a little bit more agile at accepting external knowledge and then synthesizing it to your internal organizational capabilities and then leveraging and adapting that, as opposed to just purely trying to work in a rigid system. So I think adaptability, then agility to learn, because of the speed of information, again, the speed of change that is happening. People have to be so much more agile in terms of how they accept and deal with change. And I think you're not going to have organizations talking about 10-year career development plans anymore. You just having a 3-year development plan is already a big deal. You don't even know whether you can retain talent at that amount of time anymore. How do you change at an organizational level to tap onto the talent that's with you for this first 3 years? And then, okay, let them go and then get in new talent and then leverage them and work on dealing with that. I think it is closely connected. I think the mindset that needs to come on at this point of time really is being open to new ideas, being open to a new way of looking at things. I think as innovation leaders or thought leaders, you will say, okay, I've thought these things through very well, and so this is the way we should be doing things. But I think you've also got to come to accept that there are no single experts in any field. You've got to accept different ways of thinking and looking at things. So I think from a mindset perspective, it's becoming a little bit more open to differences in opinions, and it's the journey that matters. At the end of the day, you want to get things done. How do you get those things done? There are multiple ways of looking at doing those things. I think leaders need to be open. That's the mindset. You cannot say, this is my company, my organization, this is how we're going to do it. It's either my way or the highway. I think it's a short-term, long-term view set. A lot of European and North American companies are established and have already got traction, have already got scaling capabilities, so they have the time and the money to invest in leadership development, and they realize that leadership development is a long-term process. The ASEAN region, let's look at it from a startup perspective. The ASEAN region is still operating in a very startup perspective, so they've got lots of short-term financial goals to hit. Human capital development becomes relegated to the lower end of their priority list. That's got to change, I think. A lot of organizations today in the ASEAN region, I think, are beginning to understand the importance of human leadership development for long-term strategy. So I'm optimistic about the future. I think people are beginning to realize the importance of it and to prioritize it. And when I say prioritize, it means making the correct investment into developing leaders, giving them holistic experiences, taking risk, allowing them to take the risk and to develop. You mean, okay, if you're talking purely about developing leaders, then I think the differentiator is the fact that they are willing to and have the structural ability to put these high potentials who they see as future leaders into positions that allow these high potentials to take risks, to take business risks, and to learn from mistakes. I think that's the biggest differentiator in terms of strategic development, allowing them to make mistakes and learn from it. I think the holdback for a lot of smaller organizations is the fact that they're trying to meet a lot of big financial goals in very short periods of time. So they cannot take that risk, or rather they have not begun to realize how they can balance off taking the risk and developing people at the same time while meeting the financial goals that they have set out for. I don't know of any one particular tool. I'm not going to take one particular tool name, but rather I think the word that I would like to use is holistic development. And that would mean helping your high potential talent, your leadership potential talent, to understand where he or she is today and where you want them to go in the future. You understand that gap, then you build a program, you build a development. I think it's got to be individualized development. There's no more coming in, you go through a 2-year program, all 10 people go through the same program and then they develop at the same pace. Individuals don't develop at the same pace. I think a lot of organizations are beginning to understand that you have to differentiate the learning pieces, and then you got to give them holistic experiences, meaning you've got to have classroom understanding of theories, because you want to give them a breadth of experiences and a depth of knowledge.
So you believe that the 70, 20, 10
absolutely
still applies?
Absolutely. I think that's the way forward as well. I think it's got to be self-assessment. I think it's got to be assessment from external parties as well, sort of give you a holistic view of yourself, a 360 view if you want, and I think that's not to find fault, rather take it positively as a building block, because if I don't know where I am, it'll be very hard for me to understand what I need to do to complete my leadership journey and my leadership development. So that self-assessment is just a building block, a starting block. Then you go through multiple experiences with the aim of having a breadth of experiences and a depth of skills and knowledge.